Perfect.
All right, good.
Good on battery, and you are all set.
Thank you very much.
Of course.
What do I do with it after I'm over?
I'll hit down closer to it, but if you want to, just hold on to this button here.
Okay.
Until the screen shuts off, and then you just place it down on any of the tables or if you want.
I'll put it over there.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Yep.
Oh, goodness. To remember it's on.
Right.
Good morning.
Yeah, third. So make sure that's good. Everything's back to are they fine? Okay. All right. We'll get the
Good morning. Pardon me? Okay, those are, yeah, you're right. Physical hurt.
Knees, fingers.
You know, that's an interesting thing. We talked about a lot of different kinds of hurting and nobody mentioned physical hurting. I'm going to write that down. I'm Elizabeth, by the way.
George.
George, it's nice to meet you. I'm Elizabeth Ball. We've been working on this. This is our,
I've been out of town. I just got back
well, good.
last week. Yeah.
Well, this is our last Sunday, but it's a good one.
Yeah,
So, did you go to the first service?
I did.
How was the music?
I love it.
I know, me too.
This one. Reminds me of my, one of my favorite, hangouts in Galway.
Oh, I haven't ever been. I would love to go.
They-
It's on my list.
There's at least a couple of places in Galway that have live Irish music, and they start at 5:30.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that sounds wonderful.
And if you want to get in, you got to get there pretty early.
I bet you do. I bet you do. Well, I sing in the choir, so I'm going to I'll sing for the 11 o'clock. I just couldn't do it for this one.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to put physical. That's a really good.
Well, I'll hear Sam play later today. The Sunday jazz at Adults.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean,
Every Sunday starts at 5 o'clock, 7.
I'm never there then. If I go after church. All right. That's a great idea.
$20 cover and order whatever food and drink you want from Adults.
That sounds good.
5 to 7:30
That is so good to know.
every Sunday.
I usually come back in for handbells at 4, so it would be an easy thing to do. I'm not doing it today, but I will. That's a good idea.
Good jazz. They can fix, but there's guys that go on a tour, stuff like that.
Mm.
And so Sam's been participating quite a bit.
Well, I've heard him play, I mean, obviously here, but at, what's the Irish bar and restaurant?
Oh,
We've got, several of us from church have gone over and, it starts with an M. And I can't, McIntyre's that's not it.
is that down by St. Patty?
Yeah,
Haven't been, I heard of one.
it's good. Well, I mean, having not been to Ireland, I can't say that it's authentic, but those who have been said
They serve like Guinness.
they do. They do. And good scotch. It's grab some M&Ms. You don't have to eat them if you don't like the plain ones. And just pick one out, and here's your little code for them. The red, if you pull a red one out, I want you to go around, and I'm going to be right here, but red, you tell a story about a friend from childhood, not a long, drawn out story, maybe a short story. Green, something that you've done new in the last year, or you've had that was new in the last year. Blue, meeting someone at church. This is the only one that's probably really hard. Blue is, have you ever met somebody at church that you just weren't sure what to say? You're just kind of in that awkward place. If you haven't, don't pick blue. Yellow, a good church memory. Orange, last time you laughed really hard. And you may not remember why you laughed really hard, but if you remember laughing that hard. And brown is a time you felt very hopeful. There's no time limit on that one. That can be long ago, it can be yesterday, it could be an hour ago. So have fun with it and see what you come up with. I'll sit right here too until, no, this is, you're just talking. But you do have to open them. You can eat them if you want.
Tell a story about a friend who much.
Let's open another one and see. Surely. Oh, good. I have several red here. So for hygienic reasons, I did not buy just the big bag, but certainly you guys know each other well and you can share amongst yourselves.
Work with blue, I can't do something. I got an apple one.
Well,
What is-
I don't know.
Then you got a half a memory.
We can probably make that. You got one?
The bag looked like it hadn't been opened.
So we did it.
There's a half a one.
Okay, Rosemary.
I have a friend, and she just died in January. And I have known her since we were 3 years old, with a 6-month difference in age. And have such fond memories of her. Our fathers worked together, and our mothers became friends because of that, and our fathers were friends because of that. We lived in Gulfport, Mississippi, and every Sunday afternoon, our families would get together because my friend who was my brother's age. And so our family and their family would get together every Sunday afternoon together. And we would play outside. We had a farm and goats and mulberry trees that we climbed and sat up in and ate mulberries. And we walked through the woods in the back of their house and winded our way into this big open pasture where we would just enjoy life. And we lived close to the beach, so we would go to the beach together sometimes. Our mothers made us dolls that were our size. So there were 4 of us, Muriel and me and our 2 dolls. I moved back to New Orleans. They moved back to New Orleans, so we were in high school together. And then we separated at college. But many years later, she was in real estate business for malls. And she came to the town where my parents had moved to, Nacogdoches, Texas, and met up with her family again. So we reconnected. And we've stayed friends all of these years. And I just have all these lovely memories of our childhood playing together, riding horses, climbing trees.
Oh, that's a wonderful. Those are wonderful. All
We
right.
got the same age. We got the same age.
Yes. She was 6 months older than me.
That's lovely.
I wish I could remember that far fast.
Well, somebody else. Which one's? Okay.
Orange man. Last time I laughed really hard was yesterday morning at my grandson's soccer game. He's 9 years old, George and I were there. And he was so into it, and he's got 3 little friends, and they were hugging each other and jumping up and down every time they got a goal. It was having a great time. And our son was standing beside us, and we were remembering when he was coaching their team, when Andrew was like maybe 4 or 5 years old, as soon as they start playing soccer. And we'd all go to the games. Andrew would not get on the field. He would find some reason to get off the field and be on the sidelines. You know, it's like I'm too hot. My socks are itchy. I can't play today. My stomach hurts. And Drew goes, yeah, when I was coaching, he wouldn't even get out there.
Oh,
Now he's playing great. It kind of just shows stages you go through, in life where you are scared to do something or don't want to do it. And then it's the best thing in your life later on.
that's very profound. Yeah, well, good.
I'll do a yellow,
Okay.
which is the church. Back when this building was here, back when we had the old gray house, which was the original house on the property of the late 1900s, late 1800s, something like that. But in 1966, we built the help line.
Yeah, but still. Hmm.
And here's your weight, go down. Now, very right down, go down. Both up. Yes.
It kind of was like hot tank. Sounds good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you still got together and you still have good memories. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good memory. There they are, the three buddies, three amigos. Somebody else?
But my son's wife, their daughter, so a little bit different getting him with the daughter-in-law.
Mhm.
It's your daughter's daughter. Your son and worked their way. But I had on a necklace with, had lots of things around, hanging around. One of which was a charm that had belonged to my great-grandfather. She got all interested, her 8-year-old baby, and I grabbed it. And I just couldn't let her have it, but I couldn't let it go of the fun that we would have with her.
Aw,
And all the family pieces.
that's wonderful. 8 months, pretty fun. They're more interactive. Yeah. Would you like to do one? I don't want you to feel pressured to do one. The green is something new that you've either acquired or done or had in the last year.
Some interesting encounters this year. When I was in Finland and Estonia, talking to some of the locals there, just the absolute fear and hatred they have with Russians.
Mm.
I mean, it's understandable, but I mean, it is universal. I mean, well, Estonia's got a problem. 25% of their population is Russian speaking, and they treat them as second-class citizens.
Mhm.
Not good. So, but the Finns have a long history. They have universal military service, so they basically have a reserve army that's basically 100% of the able-bodied male population.
Well,
But I was also in the former Yugoslavia. And interesting, some of the locals there miss Tito. Really? Because he kept it all under control.
Mhm.
And so everybody got along.
Kind of sounds like the Egyptians coming out of, not the Egyptians, the Israelites coming out of Egypt. Hmm.
I think they regarded him as a benevolent, he wasn't in it for himself. He amassed no wealth. And apparently the people, everybody agreed that the people, the people,
All along.
that's the history of that part of it. Just
We've had a gentleman who takes care of, he's Garrett, he's certain. And
Yeah.
he is now just went back home, couple of years ago, built the house, so it's going on. Yes, somewhere. But they came over here and what, they
Yeah, which Jason did one.
brought it out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They brought in.
91, 95.
Yeah.
Well, let's get started. I mean, this was kind of our little icebreaker. So let's just start with prayer. And I don't do things spontaneously, but I do it, ahead of time so that I do think about it. The Lord be with you. Dear God, thank you for the changing of the seasons. With new seasons, we let things go and we experience new things. Thank you for the privilege of coming together to learn and care for each other in your name. Help us to open our hearts and our minds to your will. Guide our steps today and every day. In Jesus' name, amen. So we've been talking for 3 weeks, this is our 3rd week, about everybody hurts. And we spent some time talking about what that means. We spent some time talking about this new format for the Sunday school class, just this 3 weeks. It will go back to the lecture kind of style for the remainder of the year. But we hope that there'll be some other opportunities where we can do some interaction. But part of the reason we talked about that is that there are a lot of people in our congregation. And when you have a lot of people, you have a lot of people that don't talk about what hurts. You have a lot of people that we know, we identified. We have specific protocols. If somebody dies, this committee steps in. If somebody's sick, this committee steps in. If there's something else going on, but we identified a lot of things that we didn't have any protocols for. People that get divorced, people that are empty nesters, people maybe that move here after their children have left home, and maybe they're moving here because they're relocating for the last time in their life. We talked about people that are in the LGBTQ world, that we have a pretty noticeable presence in our congregation, and what that's like. Not that we can fix it all. That wasn't the whole intent. As a matter of fact, we steered clear of fixes. The idea was to just raise the issue. Then last week we talked about, what does the Bible say? What does God say about how we are to respond to people that are hurting? Specifically, it's different than people that we care about. It's hurting. And on that back table, because there's no place to put stuff in here, has all the Bible passages that we pulled and we talked about. We talked about a lot of examples that people could think of. But today, I'm going to read a scripture passage, and then we're going to talk about this particular sentence, and then I'm going to give you some other questions to think about. This one comes from Matthew chapter 11, verses 28. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Pretty familiar. Everybody may know that. What do you hear in that Bible verse? Yes, I can. And you have Bibles at your table if you want to look it up too. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Who's the speaker, do you think? Yeah, it's Jesus. There are verbs. Take.
She pointed out.
Ooh. Verbs. Mhm. Right. Anybody else hear anything that just jumped out at you? Mhm.
Taking the palm away, stops.
Or is it? I'm going to read something and and tell me what you think after this. Okay, so you may know this. I did a little research and Stephanie helped me with a little bit of research, but a yoke is a wooden frame that connects two animals, typically oxen, to pull a plow or a cart together. It represents a partnership and the act of sharing a load. Together, the synergy of the oxen allows them to carry, this blew me away, carry more than 10,000 pounds more than they could individually and without additional expenditure of energy. Isn't that amazing? Our burdens become lighter if we are joined with Christ. Our burdens, because we are no longer carrying it by ourselves. So let me go back and just say that again. The synergy of the oxen allows them to carry more than 10,000 pounds more than they could individually and without any additional expenditure of energy. Isn't that amazing? So the yoke, take my yoke upon you and learn from me. So now what is that? Pardon me? That's right. And learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden. Mhm. Yeah. Now, in the context of what we've been talking about, how do we lean into the reality? Because it's a lot when you think about all the different ways people are hurting. One of the ways you mentioned this morning that we didn't write down, and I did now, was just physically hurting as you get older. There are aches and pains and things that hurt, and you get, you go on, but it wears on you, and it can be very depressing. It can be very isolating because you start not doing things. Actually, aging should have been on there too. But when you start thinking about that many people, I think we have a tendency to think, well, that committee will take care of it, or that group will take care of it. But when you take those committees, because we said that last week, this is not about creating any new committees. This is not about creating anything like a new project or a new ministry.
Passing more of the individual and learning they can come to Jesus and basically rely on Jesus, trust in Jesus, and learn from Jesus, and together we'll get through this.
I think that has traditionally been the way a lot of people looked at this passage. But I think the fact that he specifically says yoke twice, and a yoke is a shared, that's a partnership. That's exactly what that is. So I think it's worth kind of exploring that a little bit. If we go to Jesus, Jesus says your burden is lighter. Come to me and your burden will be lighter. I will help you. So it's a partnership with Jesus too. But are we not to live like Jesus? Are we not to reflect our lives as Jesus would want us to live? So that was my thought with this particular passage. So in that spirit, what is that? Just some thoughts. And I have some specific questions, but these are in orange. Some of the things we talked about last week. We looked up a lot of verses about what is the Bible telling us and what is God telling us that we need to be doing as far as for people that are hurting. What is God doing? So we talked about being in relationship with other people, bearing one another. Do you remember that conversation, Rosemary? What was that about? It was kind of connected with loving them anyway, bearing one another. Sometimes in a church, we don't always agree with everybody, or there might be people that, gosh, they're really hard to love, or they're really hard to help. Maybe they don't want our help. That doesn't mean we help them anyway, but it also doesn't mean that we look the other way. Hope, thus the question on the being present and healing, loving, and I think I wrote gentileness instead of gentleness, but I meant gentleness, not gentileness. Any thoughts? I know I erased it once because it didn't look right, and then I wrote it incorrectly.
Healing people, just not be judgmental, just be present.
Mhm. So if you are in relationship with someone, are you judgmental in that relationship? And we're all human. We probably are sometimes. Hold on. I know where it is. I figured it out the first Sunday. Um, mhm. Mhm. Help me understand the example that you're thinking of. Mhm. Well, you don't know the story, but the rest of you, I told, I'm a therapist, a child and family therapist. And one of the things that I try really hard not to do is ask the question, why? Why is that going on? Because there is inherent judgment behind the question, why? Why did it take me so long to figure that out? It's like, because it's so hard to move away from that question. But instead, what's happening in your life, that has caused you to, run away from everybody else? Mhm. And I think,
You know, everybody, all of each one of us is benefited and burdened by the totality, lifetime encounters and experiences.
mhm, absolutely. So I do think that kind of judgment, I think, but I'm trying to get at what you were thinking, the not holding things back. Mm. Yeah. I think if you're, again, in a relationship, if you're being present, you're trying to be sensitive to that. None of us are perfect. I mean, we're going to do all of that. We're going to be judgmental. We're going to say why. But then we can remember and go, one of the really hard ones for me is anybody that's in a domestic violent situation and continues to stay. And that's the part where I have to come back to myself and say, I'm not in their shoes, because it's a scary, dangerous place to be.
Inertia, tested will, fear of him.
Exactly. Absolutely. So can you think of a time when we think about our community of faith, can you think of a time that someone has shared your burden, a burden? And I'm not saying you have to share, but just maybe in your head. My example I've used, and I always am hesitant to do this a little bit because in my family, we were a very happy family, but we had a lot of deaths in my family. And one of them was when I was 7, and my brother, we lived in East Tennessee. We had just moved there, and my brother was on a Boy Scout trip and got lost in the Smoky Mountains for 11 days. They did finally find his body. I mean, he didn't survive. But that particular Sunday that he got lost was the Sunday we were joining our church, the First Presbyterian Church in Morristown, Tennessee. That church, now I was 7. So this is all over the years, conversations and remembrances, but they just swooped in. And it wasn't just a committee. It was because I was 7, they thought it was better that I didn't go over to the ranger station. My older brothers and my parents were all over there, but here am I, 7. So there are all these people that I didn't know that just took me in, and I would spend the night here, and I would spend the night here, and or they'd come to my house. It was wonderful. I mean, it was wonderful. One of the families in our church owned a produce company, and so they started supplying food to the ranger station. I mean, this was 1970. So there wasn't a whole lot of organization about, people that were lost. That was a horrible burden, obviously, for my parents, for our family, but that church just, people thought of things to do. There wasn't a set thing to do. Billy Graham, who was in Black Mountain, I guess he was in Black Mountain then, but there were no search dogs. There had never been any search dogs at that point. So they had to bring him in from around the country, and he had some. He had some dogs that could be. So, and he was good friends with our minister. They had been chaplains in the Navy together. That still strikes me as, I mean, how wonderful. And it's what I would do. It's probably what you would do, but it's still, when you see it in action, that's a wonderful thing. And it wasn't, again, it wasn't a committee. It wasn't a ministry. It was, how can I help? And even if they couldn't think how to help, they did something. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So that's my story. What about you guys? Do you have a story that you can think of? Have you ever helped somebody lighten their burden?
Maybe, but you don't know.
Yeah. That's a good point too. Mm-hmm. Like today.
You think
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's when I go back to some of these. Some of these are just like principles. They're not really like, we don't need a committee for any of those. You don't need a committee to talk about how do you be in relationship with other people. It's not like you're going to be best friends with them, but maybe you're going to reach out to them like you do. What about bearing one another? How do you do that on a regular kind of basis? Surely you guys have been in this church long enough that you can think of people that you kind of put up with. You love them, but you kind of put up with some of their weird, no? Yeah, and you don't have to share that story. I'm just saying, think.
She's so hard. It's off from me. She's getting me a minute away. And I'm really be getting really quick. And being and just being present in that group together. I think was not that person that I'm be fair, but somebody enjoy being.
Yeah. That's a lovely turnabout, you know?
And I heard that, yeah, we get to know. Yeah. It's very.
Thinking of a couple of curmudgeons. People would call them curmudgeons or, you know, people with serving personalities. And I won't mention any names, but, you know, it's kind of interesting. If you sit down with these people and have a more extended conversation, it's great.
Yeah. You can maybe find another way to connect with them.
Their personality is their personality. Okay. You just, get by it and, you know, they're gonna have their prejudices and that's okay.
Yeah.
Far spec. Maybe you're, I mean, you're only talking about all the problems. And you feel like, not helping them. Or should I kind of turn the conversation, you know, you have something y'all.
That's a really fine line, isn't it?
John Cowan. You all remember John? Well, later years, he was really hard of hearing. And it affected his approach to people. You know, he was loud, he interrupted all the time because he couldn't hear what was going on.
That's a really good example of somebody that's hurting. And yet at the same time, probably the way they're responding to that hurt is pushing people away.
She was against for me. And it turned out being rather together. She said, you mean something.
Mm. Mm-hmm. There's a commonality, and I erased that on that side, but that was one thing we talked about last week too, is sometimes trying to find something that you know, can relate to. What about the conversation about, have you ever had an awkward conversation with somebody at church to the point where not awkward, like the subject matter maybe, although that could be too, but it could be somebody that you just, like you're trying to talk to them and they're not communicating well with you, or you don't know how to talk to them. That's, you know, that,
It's need to have to talk.
yeah.
And maybe-
Timing?
Maybe if it was a committee that had some interaction, I just back off and look at somebody else and said, look, better way to approach this person with that personality conflict with their.
So as we think about this, and again, we're moving toward, we're not going to fix it, but we are thinking about some responses just for us. And then maybe responses as other smaller groups too. But one is, here are some things that maybe would help. Through our own pain, we become better equipped to be there for others. Do you think that's true? Through our own pain, we become better equipped to be there for others. Pain. Emotional pain, physical pain, whatever pain you want.
I found it, maybe it's being retired. You know, there's very little I have to do to impress it. So.
Okay, so
That's a thing. Oh, thing.
Good.
That's not people. Are you? I'm 75. Might be a mere child, and I'm not a mere child.
So again, I'm going to turn that back around. So you might not have to impress anybody, might not feel like you have to impress anybody, but can you help them? because of where you are, because of the experiences. Okay. Does it make you better equipped? Is there a way to think about that?
I suppose there is, because if you have been through it yourself, you have better, simply empathy, but maybe that's not the right.
Yeah. Empathy is a good word.
It's getting bad rap. Certain things. But
It is, right?
But you know, you've been there or dealt with somebody else and been through it. You can relate to what they're thinking back to practice with people that had issues and all of that just sort of had swept aside because the demands of the clients.
Were you an attorney? Yeah. I wonder if those experiences could also help you now, remembering that you didn't have the luxury then of being able, but maybe, I don't know. Yeah. And so I think the response is, what is our response? Not what do we need them to do? It's more, what do we need to do? Because, well, to just care for them, to show them that you're present, right? I mean, that you can't force them. And we talked about that too. It's not about forcing anybody to do anything. It's more about those people who don't want the help.
Let them unload on their job. Give them advice, but even in some that it's hard because
Mhm. Especially men. There's still in this age group, there is still those really, even in our kids, I'm assuming you guys have kids maybe the same age as mine in their 30s, maybe late 30s, maybe early 40s. And they have still some of those stereotypes, but I see a lot of clients that are older men come in saying, it's never been okay for me.
they people mental health is something because he couldn't admit to that.
Right.
Needed any kind of help with stigma.
Right. So if we say through our own pain, maybe we become better equipped to be there for others. If you had a child, if you struggled yourself with depression, do you think you would be better? I'm not saying fix them. I'm not saying, that's a really important thing. But to be there and to be present with somebody else, do you think you would be better equipped if you had that in your background and maybe they had that? Maybe if you knew of somebody that was struggling, had a child that was an adult child, maybe that was struggling with depression or some other, what about an addiction? If you had had a child or you'd had somebody in your life that, and I'm not, again, it's important that I'm not saying we swoop in and say, da, 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 we're here, right. It's tricky.
Sympathetic, being here, sympathetic here, but again, you can't be judged.
Right. So again, I'll give an example. When, after my brother died and my parents, it was 1970, in Morristown, Tennessee, there wasn't much available. The minister was a wonderful, wonderful person. And so my parents would go and see him. Well, they did find, I think in Knoxville, a group, like a support group for other parents who had lost children. They went one time and they hated it. And they said, it's all they did was talk about.
Ministers, churches, some churches, ministers,
Oh, right.
because you sinned.
Right. Well, and they got wonderful connection with our minister, but they were looking for some other parents that had suffered this kind of loss. But that wasn't it. It was a group that was very focused on, let's talk about our dead kids. And mother and daddy were at the point where it was like, okay, how do we go on? How do we take care of our other kids? How do we stay married? How do we live?
Approach it being judgmental. Maybe you just share your experience,
Mhm.
knowing that
Absolutely.
their experience.
And allowing them to know that you've been where you've been. You're not trying to say that I've done what you've done. But what they did do, what my parents decided at some point, was that when they would find out another couple that had lost a child, they would reach out and just say, if you ever want to talk, we're glad to talk.
Let them know you're there, that if you want to talk, fine, not here.
Exactly. Exactly. Right. And they're practical.
You can do it on.
Right. Yeah. I don't think my parents ever thought about the phone, but that would have been a good one.
You approach your baby.
Exactly.
The all thing, the same thing, and we can share.
And you don't even have to stand up and talk, you know, and somebody stands up and says, I know. We had. Of the same. Sometimes it's another one.
Mhm.
And some people are struggling.
Right.
That's a real feeling.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real, having been attorney, I had, let's say, several colleagues that,
Struggled.
that we had to deal with. And, it will be, at some point, for the sake of them, I mean, I remember one, finally, I went to somebody that, but you got to do something. Yeah, we have to intervene. So what they do is that, so they and every guy felt his wife, what's going on, and her reaction was, "Thank God, so he's doing something." As it turned out, she had similar issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was this one guy, he went through the program twice, but then he started up an intervention program through the State Bar Association. Wow.
Yeah. So our time's coming to an end, but I wanted to kind of challenge us to try to think about two maybe tangible things that you can do. Again, not to fix it, but to be more in relationship or to be more bearing, maybe to find a way to hope. I have written down, I think this came from Stephanie, hope is a warrior stance, right? Hope is, there's actual research showing that if people have hope, they are going to be in a better place at some point. And that's not to mean that everything's okay. It just means without hope, it's a very dark and difficult place. So maybe that's something we can think about.
Depends on anyone's definition.
Well, right.
If the hope is more in the relationship with God, Christ, God, things will get better for you. It doesn't mean that the current
Right.
issue is going to go away.
Right. Right.
So different.
It is, and it's individualized.
But I hope they be different from what we need.
Oh, it's true.
And it may be that you don't know until,
We had, oh,
right.
somebody.
Well, I've enjoyed meeting with you guys and having these conversations tonight. Today was lovely. Get to sit down at the table.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. All right. And then if you haven't gone to the, have you, everybody been to the first service?
We're ready.
Oh, good. Well, I'm going to go put my robe on and I'm going there too.
The music is